That's a perfect transition about your other works. I'd like to touch upon some of your other works, at least briefly, and I'd like to talk to you a bit about True Story. What was it like watching your work turn to film? What was it like working with two Hollywood megastars like Jonah Hill, James Franco?
So really briefly, in case people don't know, so my first true crime book, sort of, I didn't actually find the story. It found me, just very briefly. And I know this always like it opens up like the can of questions, but a person who murdered four people, not just four people, his wife and three children, fled to Mexico from Oregon in the Western United States, fled to Mexico and told everyone his name was Michael Finkel, and he worked for the New York Times, and my name is Mike Finkel, and I did work for the New York Times. So I had this bizarre connection with a murderer. After he was arrested and brought back to the United States, the only person that he would speak to, the fake Mike Finkel, his real name is Christian Longo, would only talk to the real Mike Finkel. I've really compressed like a whole head exploding like plot into a couple of seconds there. So I spent a year talking with this guy who told me he was innocent. I said, as is our right, innocent until proven guilty. Prove to me that you're innocent. Went to trial. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. So that's the compressed version. And I know your watchers are like, what? But a movie was made out of it, also called True Story. And James Franco played the murderer Christian Longo, and Jonah Hill played the journalist Mike Finkel. I really love both of those actors. They're really sharp. But because the material was so personal to me and so creepy to me, as my wife pointed out, this is a person who killed his wife and three children. I have a wife and three children. So to answer your question, I don't want to waste anyone's time being dishonest. It was an honor to be played by Jonah Hill and to see James Franco do it. But the material was so close to home that the first time I watched that movie, like my hands were over my eyes and I was just sort of watching through the slits of my fingers because it was too overwhelming. Just remember, so it's like my head was like, I think brain matter was just leaking out of my ears because so a murderer took on my identity, but then Jonah Hill was, then James Franco's playing the murderer who's taking on my identity. And then it was Jonah Hill was like playing me, and it was like this big onion that I was trying to peel, and all these layers of truth and fiction were sort of combining in my head. And so I think unlike anybody else who watches that movie, I was just like, I was so weirdly uncomfortable watching it, but I think you can imagine that too. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's what I got to say. You asked a complicated question, so that's what you get, Dmitry. It's your fault for my long-windedness.
That's fine.